Imagine waking up tomorrow morning to find that every bank account, every stock certificate, every deed, every Bitcoin wallet, and every dollar bill on Earth suddenly has your name on it. The entire global wealth, roughly $454 trillion, is now legally, unquestionably yours. You might think you'd become the ultimate emperor of humanity, living in unimaginable luxury while reshaping the world to your whims. But here's the thing. You'd actually have the world's biggest problem on your hands. And luxury would be the last thing you'd experience. Let's start with what happens in the first few seconds. The moment this transfer occurs, every financial system on the planet would register the same impossible transaction. Banks would freeze, stock markets would halt, credit card processors would crash. Within minutes, the entire global financial infrastructure would enter emergency shutdown mode, treating this as either the mother of all cyber attacks or a fundamental database corruption. But that's just the technical side. The human reaction would be far more dramatic. Picture this. 7 billion people simultaneously discovering their bank accounts shows zero. Their retirement savings, gone. Their children's college funds, vanished. That $20 in their wallet, the banking app on their phone now says it belongs to you. In those first few hours, before anyone even knows who you are or what happened, the world would experience something unprecedented. Not panic, that would come later, but a strange, stunned paralysis. People would refresh their banking apps over and over, certain it must be a glitch. They'd call banks that can't answer because their employees are having the same crisis. They'd try to buy coffee with credit cards that no longer work. But then, things would get interesting. And by interesting, I mean catastrophic. See, money isn't just numbers in computers, it's a belief system. It only works because we all agree it works. The second that agreement breaks, money becomes worthless paper and meaningless digits. Within hours of your newfound wealth, you'd paradoxically become the poorest person in human history because your money would be worth exactly nothing. No one would accept it. No store would honor it. No employee would work for it. You'd own everything and be able to buy nothing. The immediate aftermath would unfold in waves. First, essential services would collapse. Not gradually, but instantly. Power plant operators wouldn't show up for work, why would they, when they can't get paid? Water treatment facilities would go unmanned. Hospital staff would face an impossible choice: abandon their patients or work for free. Most would stay for a while, but for how long? Even if you wanted to pay everyone back immediately, how would you? The infrastructure for transferring money would be in chaos, and more importantly, who would trust it? Who would believe that the person who somehow stole all the world's wealth would really give it back? Transportation would grind to a halt within days. Truck drivers wouldn't deliver food to grocery stores. Gas stations would run dry. Airlines would ground their fleets. The intricate supply chains that move everything from medicine to toilet paper around the globe would snap like over-tightened guitar strings. Cities, which depend on constant deliveries for survival, would empty as people flee to rural areas where they might grow their own food. But even farming would struggle. Modern agriculture depends on fuel, fertilizers, and equipment parts that all require a functioning economy to produce and distribute. Now here's where your situation becomes truly nightmarish. You wouldn't just be presiding over this collapse, you'd be blamed for it. Every death from medication running out, every family going hungry, every business destroyed would be laid at your feet. You'd become history's greatest villain without having actually done anything evil. The rage of 7 billion people would focus on you with an intensity that would make any historical tyrant's opposition look like a friendly disagreement. You couldn't hire bodyguards, what would you pay them with? You couldn't buy a bunker to hide in, who would sell it to you? You'd be the richest person ever to live and the most vulnerable. Governments would respond with emergency measures that would make wartime rationing look generous. Martial law would be declared globally. New temporary currencies would be created, probably based on labor vouchers or resource allocation rather than traditional money. Black markets would explode overnight, with people trading whatever they had. Food for medicine, fuel for clothing, skills for shelter, cigarettes and alcohol would probably become currency again, just like in prisons and post-war economies. But these wouldn't be smooth transitions. There would be violence, hoarding, and desperation on a scale humanity has never seen. The irony is that even if you wanted to fix it, if your first action was to announce you re-giving it all back, the damage would already be done. Trust in the financial system would be shattered. If it could happen once, people would think it could happen again. Banks would face runs even after the money was returned. Currencies would be abandoned for hard assets. The psychological damage alone would trigger a global depression that would last generations. Countries would probably shift to new economic systems entirely, perhaps digital currencies with hard-coded limits on individual wealth accumulation, or even return to resource-based economies. But let's say, somehow, you could instantly distribute the wealth back, or better yet, redistribute it equally to everyone. Every person on Earth would get about $56,750. Sounds great, right? Except this would be almost as catastrophic. Prices would skyrocket instantly as everyone tries to spend their windfall. The baker who used to sell bread for $3 would now charge $300. Because why not? Everyone's rich now. The relative differences that make economies function, the incentive to work, save, and invest would evaporate. We'd have hyperinflation that would make the Weimar Republic look stable. The long-term changes would reshape human civilization. The concept of money itself might be abandoned, seen as too dangerous after this catastrophe. Communities might shift to local resource sharing systems. Technology companies might develop new forms of unhackable, uncentralizable wealth storage, though after this event, would anyone trust them? International trade would take decades to recover if it ever fully did. Countries would become far more self-sufficient by necessity, reversing centuries of globalization in months. And through all of this, you would sit at the center, holding legal claim to everything and actual control of nothing. You'd watch the world rebuild itself from scratch, knowing you caused humanity's great reset not through war or disaster, but through the simple, impossible act of owning too much. The weight of that knowledge would be its own prison, one that no amount of wealth could ever buy your way out of. In the end, the answer to what would change if all the world's wealth were yours is everything. Everything would change, and nothing would work the way you'd expect. You wouldn't be rich, you'd be the person who broke the very concept of richness. And in doing so, you'd learn the ultimate truth about wealth. It only exists because we all agree to play the same game. The moment one person wins everything, the game ends, and everyone, especially the winner, loses.